Hi, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Thank you for coming by the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel from the heart of the Deep South on the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama, where we talk about music, records, do record reviews, and interviews, much more. Today we have a fantastic interview by a wonderful musician from Austria, David Helbock. If you guys missed the review that I did of this fantastic jazz fusion album several weeks back called Austrian Syndicate, go check it out. You're going to want to pick up this album if you're a fan of jazz fusion. David took the time to speak to me today for about an hour, talk about his upbringing a little bit, talking about learning jazz, making this album, some upcoming projects he's working on, and much more. So without further ado, here is the interview with David Helbock. All right, so we are here with David Helbock today, and I'm very excited to have him on the channel and talk to him about jazz. And so I'm going to do just a brief introduction before we get into the discussion and talk about David's career and talk about this wonderful album back here, which I reviewed not long ago. So David, you were born in Koblenz, Austria, and began playing the piano at around 6 years old. It looks like you had several years of piano lessons at the Feldkirch Music School and at the Jazz Seminar in Dornbirn.
Yes.
It says you transferred to the Feldkirch Conservatory in 1998 to study classical piano. Yeah. And I also found that you cite Peter Madsen, who plays on this album on piano, as your mentor, and who you met, I guess, around 16 years old. And he had a great influence on your career, it seems like. But it also amazes me on the wide scope of music you have, that I've listened to several of your albums now online, and they vary a lot between them, and this one being unique as well. But you've amazingly put together your own personal reel book, with over 600 pages of music. You did a yearly composition project where you compose a new piece of music for every day of the year. You were awarded the Outstanding Artist Award by the government of Austria in 2011. You now have over 26 albums of your own and 6 on the ACT label here. And I think you have one coming up on the Little Big Beat Studios, which I'm very interested in hearing about that as well. So there we have it. It would take me a long time to go through all of your accomplishments, David, but thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. So can you tell us just a little bit about, so you grew up in Austria, and can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you became interested in music? Do you have a musical family? And
yes, my father is
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my father is a music teacher. He plays guitar, mostly classical guitar, but also plays a little bit of saxophone, jazz saxophone. And especially he is a big record collector also. He has a lot of different records and jazz, classical, world music, all kinds of different stuff. So I would say when I was born, I already listened to a lot of great music, just being grown in this household of my father and my mother. And then, as you already mentioned, at the age of 6 years old, I went to the Feldkirch Music School. That was like it was called Open Day of Music School, and my father took me there, and I looked at all the instruments, and I chose the piano. Actually, I think, as I remember, I chose the nice piano teacher. She was a really nice teacher from Mexico, and that's why it was just a coincidence that she played the piano, but I really liked her, and so I started playing the piano. And she was very open already, so we tried, of course, some technique, but then there's some Mozart, Bach, but also some pop music already, Beatles, and she was not a real jazz player, but a little bit of jazz, maybe a bit. And then I went to this other music school here in the area, which is the jazz seminar. And there I had another teacher called Paul Winter. He was more like a keyboard player. He also did some film music. And he was a big fan of Prince. And there I found my love to Prince, for example. I also did one album then later where I only covered Prince songs. Yeah, and then the conservatory in Feldkirch, which was really classical training with a great Hungarian teacher called Ferenc Bognár. Yeah, and as he was Hungarian, we played a lot of Bartók, for example. I also developed a love to the music of Béla Bartók, which is very rhythmical music, which somehow suited me. I always liked very rhythmical music. And then in 2001, I think, Peter Madsen moved to Austria. He came from New York. He lived like in 25 years in New York and then met an Austrian woman and moved to Austria. And he became kind of my main teacher for almost 10 years, I would say, yeah.
And he was also is interesting because he does a lot of different types of music as well. He doesn't let himself be boxed into a certain genre or anything, which it seems like you are the same way. Yeah. So as you started progressing, what kind of got you steered in the jazz, kind of focused towards that music? What particular albums and artists and so forth really caught your attention to kind of?
I think one of the first tunes I ever learned with this teacher at the jazz seminar was Blue Monk by Thelonious Monk. So, yeah, I got a Monkaholic in a way very, very early, and then later I transcribed all of his songs and played all of them and arranged them for some different projects of mine. We even did with my trio Random Control, where we have different two horn players and myself. We did a whole CD also with Monk covers. And then there was of course the classical influence, but there were more the modern class. Yeah, I mean, I always loved Bach, but then more like the romantic. I played a lot of Schumann, I played a lot of Schubert, then also the French, Ravel, Debussy. And then when Peter Madsen moved here, I mean, he really, he played with everybody actually, from very different styles, he started playing with Stan Getz, so really traditional jazz, and then he played with the modern guys, Chris Potter or Joe Lovano, and then he played really free jazz with Dewey Redman or Don Cherry, and then he's in the Fred Wesley Band, the funk guys with P.V. Ellis and Maceo Parker. So he came here and he just showed me all this stuff, and I was just able to choose what I like in a way, and that was very fortunate for me that such a great player came here. I mean, I remember coming to a lesson, one of my first lessons, and bringing my favorite CDs with me, which was maybe back then when I was 16 was like a Herbie Hancock Greatest Hits CD. I think I had a Michel Petrucciani Trio CD, and I had a Maceo Parker Band CD. And he just had personal stories to all of these guys. He played some duo with Michel Petrucciani, for example. And that was just so motivating as a young 16-year-old coming from a little town here in Austria and I didn't know anything about the world, and he just brought the world, and he brought New York, and he brought the jazz world to this small area here, and that was very motivating, and I really started to practice a lot,
So that kind of opened a whole new world of music for you. Yeah. And of course, now you're traveling all over the world, doing all these, playing at these different festivals and doing all these different shows. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe, of some of the people that you've played with live that have had a big effect on you, or that you've learned from on the stage? Because I always find that that's that's interesting. A place to learn or a place to, yes.
I mean, for me, it's a little different because I grew up in this very small area where there's not a big jazz scene, you know. Then later I moved to Vienna. Now I live more in Berlin, which has, of course, a much bigger jazz scene. But back then, there were not many people to play with, you know. And I always had to start my own projects, and I had to organize my own gigs, and I had to organize and write my own music and do my own projects. So I was not in... I know from other guys, for example, then later, which I met in bigger cities, that they... When you just play good and you are on the scene, then it starts that people call you, you know. But here in this small area, it was the other way around. I called people and I organized it myself. So actually, from the very beginning, it was, for me, it was more important to develop bands, you know, and play with different bands for a long time. For example, my long-time trio, which is from guys from here. It's Andreas Broger on saxophones and clarinets and flutes and all kinds of wind instruments, and Johannes Beer on all the brass instruments. He plays tuba, alphorn, trumpet, and we play now together for like 17 years. So that was very important. So if you ask me with whom I play, for me it's much more important that I play with the same guys for a very long time, and that we develop music and that we develop a band sound, than playing with famous guys, you know, and once in a while having... I mean, I had the opportunity to play with a few famous guys. For example, I just did another project with Michael Mantler. And he, in a way, he started free jazz in the 60s. You know, he had this jazz composers orchestra with his wife back then, Carla Bley, and he had Cecil Taylor and all these free jazz guys. And like 10 years ago, I started to work with Michael, and we made like an album for ECM actually, which was called the Jazz Composers Orchestra Update. Yeah. And there, I, in a way, took the place of Cecil Taylor from that legendary album. So he is maybe one of the only guys actually where I'm doing a sideman job.
Right now, how is the jazz scene? Oh, I'm sorry, it kind of broke up there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Michael Mantler is one of the only guys where I'm doing a sideman job. You know, where I'm playing. I now did 4 albums with him. But all my other projects are my own projects as a leader, you know. I have different trios, I have different duos, now the big Austrian Syndicate. But it's all my music, my projects, my arrangements, and I organize everything. And really playing with other people, yeah, Michael Mantler is probably one of the only guys I'm doing that.
So that brings me to asking a little bit about Austria and Germany and Europe right now with jazz. Mm-hmm. How is the scene over there? People will probably be curious to know, are there jazz clubs where you can go play regularly, or are you mostly finding that it's festivals? What kind of venues do you find that are available for jazz or for the type of music you're playing?
Yeah, both, yeah. I mean, especially in Austria we have one main jazz club in Vienna, which is the Porgy and Bess. There I play like, I don't know, at least a few times a year. So I played there like 50 times already. And it's like my kind of house club where I play a lot. And I think it's really also, in Europe, it's one of the, if not the best jazz club in Europe. It's really a big, with a great international program. And yeah, but also in Austria we have all kinds of different jazz clubs in every city. There's one in Graz, in Salzburg, here in the western part there's one in Dornbirn. But we also have in every little town, there are like little cultural vereins, I would say, not even jazz clubs, just little connections of people who do sometimes some theater, sometimes some music. So there's a lot of things where you can play. And Germany is the same. In every major city you have at least one good jazz club. And there are a lot of festivals as well. In Austria, we have the Intone Festival, we have Saalfelden Jazz Festival. I'm actually programming a new festival next year in February in Götzis, which is here in western part of Austria, called Jazz am Bach, where I'm curating the festival and inviting the artists. And in Germany, there are a lot of festivals. I mean, one of my favorite festivals is maybe Jazz Baltica, which is in the north at the North Sea. Yeah, but also outside of the German-speaking countries, we have a lot of Spain, in Italy, in France. France is for me a more a difficult kind of market. They are more a little closed, and mostly some Americans play there and mostly French guys. But Spain and Italy is very open for me. I played there a lot. Also Eastern Europe, a lot of in Romania. I play in Romania at least every year. In Poland. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here in Europe, I would say.
Do you ever get a chance to come over to the U.S. and play very much here? Or is it very difficult?
It's harder. We have this cool program in Austria called, they have like the embassies, and they have some cultural departments called Austrian Cultural Forums. There's one in New York, there's one in Washington, there are a few in Canada. So I did those gigs a lot, playing for the Austrian Cultural Forum in New York, for example. I did a few normal jazz clubs in New York. I once did the Winter Jazz Festival. I played all the major festivals in Canada, Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto. Yeah, but it's of course more difficult for a European. I try to get in contact with booking agencies and also try to book some stuff myself. Yeah, we have been to Texas once. We have Washington. I've been to Boston. Yeah, once in a while, but not that regularly, I would say. I'm more, for example, I move more like, I played a lot more in Asia, for example, than in the US. Also sometimes in Africa, South America. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, getting into this album here. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this album. This is first of all, can you tell us about the cover? Because it's an intimidating cover here with the big red ant on there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, somehow the concept, it started with the idea of doing a tribute to Joe Zawinul. And then we had this idea to do it with all Austrian musicians. And I mean, Peter Madsen, he's from the US, of course, but he lives in Austria now for more than 20 years. And yeah, then we somehow put the focus on Austria. I have one Zawinul cover on the album, and also one Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart cover, which somehow it starts with Zawinul, it ends with Mozart. For me, the two best composers we had in Austria. So somehow the focus was on Austria, and then I thought, of course, for the cover artwork, I also wanted to have an Austrian artist. And yeah, I got in contact with Peter Kogler, and he's actually quite famous. I don't know if you know him, but he got famous for his ants, and some of his ants are even in the MoMA in New York and in all kinds of galleries all over the world. And yeah, I just asked him if he would allow us to put an ant on the cover. And I somehow like that symbol of the ant as well, because the ant is, they always work in a team and build something big, and I somehow like this because it's a bigger band, and it's not just of course it's under my name, but it's like a band, and Peter Madsen also composes for it, and it's somehow of a teamwork. So I like the ant, and I also like that, of course, a famous Austrian artist, Peter Kogler is his name.
So how did you pick You mentioned you were going to go with Austrian artists, but you also have a lot of guest artists on here. How did you put together all the people that you wanted on the record?
Well, the core band is somehow is my trio. I played with these guys a lot. It's Herbert Pirker on drums and Raphael Preuschel on bass. I toured with them, the whole world. We played on festivals everywhere, played hundreds of concerts. So I had this foundation. Then I had the other idea to work with Peter Madsen to somehow, teach a student, but now somehow on the same level in a way. And he's playing only piano, and I'm playing only synthesizers and keyboards. And then I felt there's still something missing in this core band, also with the idea of having the Joe Zawinul Syndicate in mind. He always used a lot of percussion. And Claudio Spieler is actually also an Austrian percussion player, now lives in the Netherlands. And I know him maybe the longest from all these guys. We went to school together. He also was in this Feldkirch Conservatory, where we, for example, when I was 16 and he was 18, we played his final exam, where we played, for example, the Bela Bartok sonata for 2 pianos and 2 percussion players, which is an amazing piece. Yeah, so I had the core band then, and then, I mean, of course, if I was thinking of Joe Zawinul in the back of my mind, and I still wanted to go further and not just a tribute album, but more like in the spirit of Joe Zawinul. But he always had a lot of singers and a lot of guests and a lot of colors in his bands. So I thought, let's invite some guests. And we picked a few guests that were mostly friends of Peter Madsen and myself. So we had some personal connections to them. Of course, Fred Wesley, the great trombone player, musical director of the James Brown Band, and Peter Madsen is in his band, in the Fred Wesley Band, now for 30 years. So that was a easy call. Back then, I just played a concert with Daffer Youssef, the great oud player, but also singer. So I asked Daffer. Lakeisha Benjamin was more like the connection was through my agent, because we have the same agent, and I wanted to have also some. Fred Wesley is 82, I think now, and I also wanted to have some young voices, and Lakeisha is more like in my generation. I always loved Maria Joao, great singer from Portugal. I just love her energy and her playfulness, and she, of course, played with the Zawinul Syndicate, so that made sense. But I didn't play with her before. I just asked her. And the same with Alex Acuna. Alex Acuna was, of course, the drummer of Weather Report for a while, and he was very much connected to Joe Zawinul, so I thought that's a nice idea to have him. He even plays on the Zawinul cover, where we have what we have on the album. And so here we have a nice list of guests.
How do you go about composing the music and the arrangements and everything for a record like this? And how much of it do you pass out sheet music? How is it recorded? How is it arranged? And how much of it is improvised? Because people like me that kind of come from a rock background find a lot of times this to be kind of mysterious in certain ways on how the pieces can be so varied and rhythmic changes and different things. So how do you go about that? Is it all written out, or is it just
no? It's not all written out.
Arrangements handed out and everybody.
Yeah, we have some basic lead sheets. I mean, as I already told you, I wanted to have one Zawinul cover on there, but I always felt that if I do a piece from Weather Report or even one from his Zawinul Syndicate, that was too close to what we are doing in terms of the instruments, and it's already, the original is so good that it's you only can lose if you try to do that, I think. So I purposely really just picked an older tune of his. It's one of his first tunes, Money in the Pocket. It's from the 60s, which he where he really played some jazz, like with horns, and that's a very old tune, kind of a bluesy tune of his from the 60s. And I arranged that for this band, and then we also incorporated some of his Syndicate grooves, more modern grooves, and I made a kind of a whole arrangement of this older tune of his. And then I had this idea of the other famous and great Austrian composer, Mozart, which is just a folk song from Austria, more or less. Yeah, and the rest is half tunes of mine and the other half of Peter Metzen. And there is also one tune of our bass player, Raphael Preuschel, on it. And all of us, we just bring the lead sheets to the rehearsal, and then we start developing it on the, first the composer, of course, tells what he wants to have, what kind of groove, what kinds of sounds. For me, this was more new because most of all my other projects are where I play just piano. I do a lot of inside piano, so I always liked sounds, but using so many keyboards was also new to me, so I had to program all these keyboards and arrange which sounds, and where do I have a bass sound, where do I have a melody sound, where do I have some more pad-oriented stuff. So for me that was a big challenge, but I did that more before the first rehearsal, and then we met and did some days of rehearsal, and then I already booked us a tour through Austria with more like smaller clubs. I wanted to test it, and do a test tour, and we played like 5 shows every day, and then right after that little tour we went into the studio. And in the studio it's mainly just live. We just play, it's just first take, sometimes a second take, and that's it. And with this it was a little bit more arranged and or more produced as my older records, because we have all these guests, and all of these guests, they just did overdubs. They were not with us in the studio. We recorded the core band, all the 5 guys of us, and left. I already knew, okay, maybe on this piece we could have a trombone solo by Fred Wesley, and so we left some space, and then I sent it, for example, to Los Angeles for Fred, and to Portugal for Maria, and Duffer used to live in Vienna at that time when we recorded, so Duffer came to us to the studio, but all the other guys are overdubs. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to be able to do that you can go in and, with today's technology, you can go into the studio, you can record, and then you can send the tracks, and then you can have these people contribute to the record. It's very, very convenient to have that.
Yeah, it's really.
The compositions on here are...
Yeah, for example, Lakeisha Benjamin, I sent her the song, and she recorded 3, 4, 5 different solos for me, and just sent me all the stuff and said, you do whatever you want with it, and I spliced it a little bit, and that was really fun. And also Alex Acuna, for example, he played djembe, he played some clave, some cowbell, he sent me 6, 7 different percussion tracks, and then I just chose what it was also kind of a different experience for me, because usually when I do an album with my trio, we just go in and play the song, and it's usually first take or second take, and that's it, And here later I produced it a little bit and was together in the studio with the mixer and the mastering and everything, and we put all the little pieces together, which was a nice experience for me as well.
So how involved were you with the mixing and the mastering of this?
Yeah,
were you involved with the final mix and everything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very much.
And then the mastering.
The same guy who also recorded us in a studio close to Vienna did the mixing, Werner Angerer, for me the best kind of engineer in the Vienna region. And I met with him. He first did a little rough mix himself, and then I met with him 2 days, and we did all the... Also Duffer came to the studio again. We did some singing overdubs of Dafa Youssef, and then we mixed the whole thing, and then Klaus Scheuermann in Berlin, who also did a lot of work for me, kind of mixing and mastering. He mastered it in Berlin. Yeah, but I was really involved.
It's a very nice sounding.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very nice sounding album, and it's a lot of colors. It takes several listens to go through and really to truly appreciate it, because it's just a lot of different colors on the record. It's absolutely wonderful. Are you taking this? So this is kind of a new direction for you, in a sense, kind of going into more of a jazz fusion. Is this something that you're going to be carrying on for quite a while? Is this going to be going into the little Big Beat studio thing, or is that something different?
No, that's something different. I mean, with this band now, the album was released like a little more than a year ago, and during this last year we really played a lot of festivals and clubs, and we played last November. We played a really long tour with like 30 concerts with just one day off in between, so a really long tour. And then we played a lot of festivals, summer festivals. And I always feel that with every album I do, it's a pity that we don't record it now, because you do this little test tour, and then you record it, and then you release it, and then you play a long tour with like 60, 70 concerts. And now it's really musically, it's on a different level, because we all play together much better, and I programmed much more different sounds and found ways to combine different keyboards. So I'm still happy with the album, but if you would hear like a live concert now of the band, it's really something different, I would say. But the Little Big Beat studio is a great studio in Liechtenstein, and there I will record my new project, which is my trio, my long-time trio I told you about, with Andreas Broger and Johannes Beer, with this tuba, alphorn, saxophone and everything. And we invite a singer from Stuttgart called Fola Dada. So we are a quartet, and Johannes is now also not just playing horns and tuba, but he also plays a little drums at the same time and does beatbox, so he's like a one-man show in a way. Yeah, and I wrote a completely new program for that. I put poems into music. I have like William Blake, Emily Dickinson poems, Erich Fried. Yeah, so there are a lot of poems, and Fola Dada is singing those poems, so it's all my tunes. And I'm looking forward, because this is a really great studio it will be kind of a live session, so there will be audience. And the audience will have, every audience member has like headphones, and there's a big, great film team there. And it's also, the concept is to do everything live. It will be kind of a live album, and all will be analog, right on tape, and will be. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and also there will be an exclusive vinyl from that, which I think, the sound quality will be really good. I hope so. I guess so.
I'm sure it is. I picked up some records from them. The Simon Phillips album, and he made that available more widespread than most of those records that come from there. I was going to ask you about that, because his were available on Amazon. Theirs were a little bit easier to purchase here in the United States than some of the other ones. Is that going to be also available?
Yeah, it's more about from his web shop directly, and it's more like we sell them on the concerts. So it's really more an exclusive thing, not like, for example, the ACT thing, which distributes all over the world. But this is more like an exclusive thing where we really get the album on the website of Little Big Beat. But I can send you one, of course.
Little Big Beat.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. I'd love to review it. The one that Simon Phillips did sounded fantastic. Of course, it goes right to tape there when they're recording. Yeah. So how is that going to be for you knowing that's being recorded, does that have any pressure on you, or do you just not even, you're so used to playing that you're not even going to think about it when you're recording and you know it's going right to tape?
I mean, I've never done a session like this, so it will be now in 1 month we will record it, so beginning of October. So I'm not sure. Maybe there will be some pressure, yeah. But I mean, those are my friends now for 20 years, and we played together for 17 years. We played thousands of concerts. So I think there's nothing that makes us nervous. I don't know. And Fola Dada is a really great singer, and she somehow brings it down. She's more like, I mean, she's a jazz singer, but also in the soul, popish field a little bit. So she brings it down to earth a little bit and makes it more soulish. And I think it will be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me seems like it'd be a little intimidating, but I guess, you know, if you've played for so long, it's probably not that big of a deal for you. What are you finding as far as what you're listening to nowadays? What kind of music do you listen to, and does it affect your songwriting now as if you listen to different things?
Well, I mean, privately, I still listen to a lot of classical music, actually. Still some Bach, some Goldberg variations I'm listening at the moment from Glenn Gould, for example. In terms of jazz, I always come back to Thelonious Monk. I mean, I'm maybe not on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis I listen to him. I listen to Hermeto Pascoal, is another hero of mine, a Brazilian multi-instrumentalist and composer. Those are two guys I always come back to, you know. And there is another thing that now I started to do some programs for example, that festival I told you, I'm doing this festival now in February in Götzis, and I'm also doing the program for a jazz club in Dornbirn called the Spielboden. And for that, I get a lot of people send me music, you know, but that's more like recent music from bands who want to tour, you know. And I discover some really cool stuff, for example, yeah. Which is, it's a fun kind of because I'm always on the other, you know, there are two seats in a way. You are a musician and you want to get gigs at the club, and I always send out mails and try to get to agents, and you always send out music. And now I'm also on the other side a little bit, and I get all this, and I have to choose what I want to book, for example, yeah. And yeah, for this festival, for example, I booked a great band. It's just a duo. She's called Marily Pacheco, together with a trumpet player from Stuttgart called Joe Kraus. It's like a duo, piano and trumpet. I like them a lot, and so I could give them a gig, you know, and I like that, you know, giving somehow making it possible to give my colleagues a possibility to play. Yeah.
So since you've kind of developed the band as you've been playing this record, did you happen to record any of the live recordings to where you could possibly make a live record or anything like that? Is that possibly anything in the future on that maybe?
Could be, yeah, but also already released some stuff on YouTube just as videos, you know. Like beginning of this year in January, I had my 40th birthday, and I had a 3-day festival at this club I told you in Vienna, Porgy and Bess. And one night was also the Austrian Syndicate playing with guests, and another night I played with Iiro Rantala, a great piano player from Finland. We played a piano duo, 2 pianos on stage. And the first night I did this trio and Fola Dada already. So I had a lot of material. It was all filmed, all recorded, and I published I think the best 15 songs on YouTube, not on an album, but on YouTube as a video.
I saw those.
Yeah. So yeah, There's more stuff,
And
of course.
so you don't right now. You don't know if you'll do like a actual record album though of those.
Probably not. No. So I think the next one is this little big beat.
And
thing
how do you decide?
Yeah, this next one is this little big beat thing with this trio plus Fola Dada, and then I'm also already thinking about the next one on Act, which will be then maybe half a year later or a year later. And there I'm thinking now, because I had this big band, with 5 guys and all the keyboards on tour and all the percussion and setting up everything. I mean, it's a lot of work actually. So I have the urge to do something smaller. So I'm trying now different duo partners, and I'm probably will do a duo with a great bass player from Vienna, and she also plays cello, called Julia Hofer. But we are now starting to record some demos and playing maybe some first few shows. So it's still in development, but I think my next album on Act will be a duo album, smaller and more acoustic also.
That's another thing that I was curious about, David, was the logistics of touring and setting up. You're just talking about all the instruments and everything. I think people have a misconception about how much work that is, especially it's not like one of these big rock bands where you walk out and some guy hands you your instrument and then away you go, and when you get to the next place you show up and everything's ready. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say still, I mean, I love to play, it's what I have to do. It's my dream, but just the actual playing and being on stage is just a little tiny portion of the work that goes into a project like this. You have to organize all the concerts, you have to organize all the travels, all the trying to get a good routing that it makes sense travel-wise. Otherwise, it's a horror, if you have to fly a lot. So with the Austrian Syndicate, we mostly now had we rented a bus and brought all my keyboards myself. I mean, I had some festivals where we flew there, and then I requested in the rider, for example, a Fender Rhodes. But all the synthesizers, I mean, some of them are really special. You don't get them everywhere, and I have my sounds in them, and so I decided to bring all my synths myself. I have to, even if we fly, I have 2 big luggages for the flight, and I bring everything myself except of the Fender Rhodes. Yeah, and also the percussion is the same somehow. I mean, you can, on the rider, you can request, for example, 2 congas, because most of the festivals can organize that, but Claudio has all kinds of different small percussions, which is, something special. You can't just rent it, So, that's a lot of work. Yeah. And the same thing with my trio. I mean, with the Random Control trio, it's the same. We have so many instruments. We have the tuba, we have the sousaphone, all the saxophones, we have the alphorn. I mean, if we play like a trio, we fit in a big car and can do that. But now with the quartet, with the singer Fola, it will be also like we have to rent a bus. So once in a while I like just to do a solo album or a duo album and do everything by train. That's also just, then you have 1 year of touring with that project, and that's more relaxed then, and then you have again the energy for a bigger project.
I was watching there's a new documentary out with Roy Hargrove, and he was saying that, look, I get paid to travel and set up and do all the stuff. Playing the music is the fun part, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's holiday. Really, I mean, I'm sitting at home in front of the computer doing all this organizing. I mean, it's just so much bureaucracy also, you have to write all the invoices, you have to do the travel, to book the flights, all that stuff, and then when you are on the road, with guys that you like, I mean, all of those guys I play with in my trio, but also in the Syndicate, they are my friends, and you have a good time on the road, and for me that's holiday, you know. It's like yeah. For that I do all the other work, you know.
So I want to get your thoughts on what you think about the future of recorded music, and I don't know how much you've seen about the whole AI thing, but it's getting kind of scary because you can go on a website like Udio and put in there what you want to hear, and it comes up with, you know, if you were doing a movie soundtrack, you can probably do something on there in hours. It's kind of scary, and I think it still is lacking a bit of the human element, but you could fool people very easily. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to take away from composers? Do you think it's going to take away work?
Yes, I think it will take away a lot of things, yeah. It's just in the beginning now, and it's already pretty good. So I think all this, yeah, like music to films and just music, background music, all that will just be AI generated. And also, you know, if you go to Spotify, I mean, the main thing on Spotify for most people are those playlists. You know, you find a playlist that's called, I don't know, Romantic Jazz. And most people don't care who is the artist or playing on that playlist. They just want to have, Romantic Jazz. And I think a lot of those songs will be composed by AI. So what I'm hoping, and I'm also optimistic that, you know, the kind of live element of music and also the improvised music will still be, or will maybe even get more value because of this, you know, that people will be hungry to just to see and to go to live concerts, you know. But in terms of recorded music, I'm not sure, you know. I mean, it's already the case also without AI, you know, the CD is dying out. Vinyl is coming back now a little bit, but still not that much that you can, you know, make a living or that you really make a lot of money with vinyls. It's just, yeah. And I mean, I started like 20 years ago, and back then the CD was still big, you know, and we did our live shows and people bought a lot of CDs. But now more and more people come to the CD stand and say, yeah, I really like what you did, but I don't even have a CD player, you know, that's gone, you know.
I know.
Yeah, and of course all my music is on Spotify and all these streaming services, but there you don't make a lot of money, or you make actually no money as a musician. You forget it, but it's still good to be on there, like some kind of advertising that people find you there. Yeah, but I still think that the live thing is the only thing that will survive in the end.
Yeah, well, I was talking to, I did an interview with Corey Weeds, who owns Cellar Music. He's the jazz label in Canada. You're probably familiar. And he was talking about that these were nice to be able for the artists to take with them to the shows, and they were actually selling the records at the show because, you know, you can autograph them, and it's even if someone doesn't have a record player, they could still have the signed record as something to take home. Are you finding do you take yours with you?
Yeah, and that's the main reason why people are buying even CDs now. I mean, some people say, I don't have a CD player, but I want to have your autograph, and it's like a memory of the concert, you know. Yeah. We still have that, and also vinyls, you know, it's nice to sign them. And I mean, I personally only listen to vinyls. I don't do streaming at all, and I also don't do CDs much, but when I buy music for myself privately, it's only vinyls. Because I just like that, you know, you have to sit down and you have to put on the vinyl, and after, I don't know, 20 minutes you have to turn it, and it's more like an active kind of listening. Somehow similar to a concert. Yeah, you're participating at a concert, and you get a maybe a little similar experience if you listen to a vinyl. If you just stream it and you have, I don't know, 10 billion songs available on Spotify, and you even let the algorithm decide what you are hearing next, and yeah, it's not that active, you know, and I like to still decide what I want to hear. Yeah.
So how big of a record collection do you have? Do you collect records actively as you travel around, or I'm kind of curious.
Not that much. I mean, I have a few hundred maybe. My dad has a much bigger collection. Yeah, I more have like all. Yeah, for example, I told you this Hermeto Pasquale or Thelonious Monk. I have quite a few records of those guys, and I always come back to the same records. Yeah.
And are you making sure that all of your future albums will be on vinyl? They'll be available on vinyl. Is that something that's of importance to you to make sure that they are always available on there?
Yeah, that's important for me. Important for me, but it's I mean, I'm with this label act, and in a way, if you're with a label, they in a way decide how they wanna. But as Ed is coming back, all my last albums were released on vinyl, and I think, yeah, definitely.
And they're usually kind of limited edition. There's probably maybe 300 or 500, depending on, I guess, probably what act wants, how many they want to make. I guess that's how that works. And then you probably get some to take with you on tour.
Right. That's the usual deal with a record label. That, I mean, they estimate. Sometimes it's different from project to project. They estimate how much they will sell, and they make like an edition, and then you can reprint them, of course. And I usually take a few hundreds and sell them on the concerts. Yeah.
Awesome. So before you go, I'm curious a little bit about. So you play piano and you play synthesizer, keyboard. I was just curious, what kind of equipment are you using? Usually, if you're just going to play the piano, I'm assuming you probably show up and play the piano that's there.
Yeah.
If you're just playing acoustic piano, if you're going to bring your like you're doing now, what's the main equipment? Have you changed equipment, or are you pretty much happy with what you're using now? I'm always curious about the gear and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of piano, I myself have a Steinway piano, and I'm also officially kind of a Steinway artist, they call it. It's just not that I mean, I also love other pianos. I don't care that much, to be honest. I mean, Bösendorf is fine, Fazioli is fine. They're all great pianos. But the advantage of a Steinway piano, for example, compared to Bösendorf, is because I'm playing a lot in the inside of the piano. I'm muting different strings, I'm playing different harmonics. And that's a little easier on a Steinway because it doesn't have so many metal bars inside. You just can reach the strings easier. Yeah, that's in terms of piano. But yeah, you have to take what's there. You can't. I'm not on the level like I don't know Arthur Rubinstein or maybe Herbie Hancock. Those guys, they bring their own piano. They brought their own piano. But I just take what's there.
Wow.
But also I'm flexible. I mean, even if I'm playing with the trio, I sometimes like to play on a good upright piano. Is fine for me too. It doesn't has to be a grand piano. I even sometimes prefer the upright piano because then as a trio you can set up much closer and then it's somehow more intimate and more interaction possible, as if you have like a big almost 3 meters long grand piano in between you and the bass player or you and the tuba player. Yeah, and in terms of keyboards now, mostly for the Austrian Syndicate, I have different equipment on the album that I'm using now, but that's mostly because of convenience and traveling and carrying all this stuff. I mean, on the album I have a real big 88 keys Fender Rhodes, but that's like, I don't know, 50, 60 kilograms. And I mean, for the first gigs I took that with me, but then after a while you just say, even if sometimes you have people helping you at the festival, of course, carrying that stuff, but if you play at a small club, you do it yourself. And then I now got it's called a Krumar 7. That's an Italian brand. It looks like a Fender Rhodes, but it's a digital piano. It has a good Fender Rhodes sound in there, but also some more clavinets and stuff. which I'm using a lot, and it just has like 15 kilograms. You know, it looks vintage. You know, you also have to screw in the legs, like in a Fender Rhodes, but it's completely digital. And the same is a little bit with one keyboard I had on the record was a Moog, a mini Moog Voyager, which is like an old analog synthesizer. But there also that has 20 kilos, and I now replaced that with a mini Logue by Korg, which is just 1 kilo. It's like more like a plastic, but it still sounds sounds pretty good. And the other equipment I have now, in the meantime, my main synth on top. On the album it was a Polybrute, and now it's Take 5 by Sequential. And one of the main keyboards I'm using, I already had it on the album and I'm still using it a lot, is this new keyboard from a French company called Expressive. The keyboard is called Osmosis.
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And that's really special because it's really different. You know, all the keys have like a touch. You just touch them a little bit and the sound already starts. It's not like you press a piano key and you have to press it hard that the sound comes. It's you just touch it a little bit, so you have much more dynamics on it, and you have on every key you have a pitch bend, so you could play like a chord like this and just pitch one note, and it's really a kind of a different experience to play it, and I really like that.
So you'll be able to expand your palette even further with all these types of tools, which is kind of neat, because you're definitely very creative at coming up with a lot of different sounds. So I'm looking forward to hearing your upcoming projects as well, and hopefully I can have you back on when the Little Big Beat record comes out, because I'm sure that's going to be very good. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with me and share with me, and I'm sure everybody's gonna enjoy listening to this and learning from you. So I do appreciate it, David, for the time you took, and hopefully we can talk soon. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then it'll take a few minutes for this to